directions, and I'll get us some water.
Okay. Hi, good morning. It's Kit and Lindsay, and welcome to One vs. the Other, where we share different culture and opinions. And if you're new here, once again, welcome. And if you found us interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment. And let's dive into today's topic, which is Planned Parenthood, which is really like is on the news, all over news recently.
Oh yeah, I just saw on the news right after you left yesterday. I saw on the news how even Joe Rogan had gotten upset because he was speaking to a man named, I think it's like Tom Dillon, and he was like, "You're not gonna force my 14-year-old daughter to have the child of her rapist. Like, that's just not gonna happen. You're not gonna. That's inhumane to force a 14-year-old child to give birth to their rapist."
I don't know about that person. What was the backstory about?
No, they were just discussing abortion.
Oh,
That's it.
okay.
Yeah.
But
and one of his daughters is, I think his eldest daughter is 14 years old. His oldest stepdaughter is 23 years old. And he said, he was like, "You're not gonna force." Like, they were just having the discussion of having a child. If a child should be forced to have the child of the rapist. And I heard that and I was like, I completely agree with that. Like, that is a horrible thing to ask of a child.
it is, but that is extreme. And that they also bring into the argument about, I don't know, it's liberal conservative. I think conservative. They also bring up the discussion saying that how about we make the exception for extreme measure like that, like if is in the case of related rape or sexual assault, those is exceptional case. Like those is, how about if they do the exception for them? Is that able to consider?
But then that's a case-by-case basis.
Exactly.
Like, they have to go through, inspect every single instance. And when it comes to abortion, like, as a female, like, it's a very quick response, right? You can't sit and think about it, in my opinion. Because you think a lot. Like, you have to immediately make the decision right away. Yes or no. Like, personally, I've never had an abortion. I've never had to have the decision to make it. But I hear from a lot of people that a lot of the women that do end up deciding to have abortions, I've never heard of a woman regretting it. Like, have you ever heard that? Like, I've never seen online a woman ever saying, "I regret this."
I guess I heard some story, but I don't really recall, so I wouldn't bring that as a source to say that. But other people were also saying that after they have kids, they originally didn't want the kids, but they were forced to have the kids. Now they were saying that, "Oh, this is such an amazing person in my entire life. Like, see, I didn't even think that I was able to hold up the motherhood. Now I enjoy every single bit of it." I guess.
But that takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's hard. It's not simple.
Like, I don't think people realize the sensation or feeling of feeling unwanted throughout childhood. Because, like, for instance, my mom and I discuss this a lot, right? Like, we talk about it a lot because she was a single parent for, like, a long period of time. For, like, a long period of time, like, I completely felt unwanted and unneeded and annoyance in her life. And that I was lucky that she had me. Like, she let me live. Do you understand what that means?
You feel certain type of way.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And, like, my mother and I have discussed it. Like, she deeply regrets that I have that sensation or I had that experience growing up. Like, my mom has a lot of deep regrets when it comes to that. And I really appreciate that she does discuss those things with me. Like, we have full-on detailed conversations to this day, and it's one of her biggest regrets. And it sucks because it's like, I think a lot of kids feel unwanted. Like, no kid should feel that way. Like, I deeply do feel that. And I feel like abortions help with that. I know that sounds really hurtful and horrible. Like, my mom doesn't care for abortions. Like, My other parent does not care for the thought or the act of abortions. And it's sad because I feel like abortions do help parenthood in a way, because it allows for every child to feel wanted, right? Because if a parent gets in a situation where an adult gets in a sticky situation where they're not able to financially afford a child, and they have to deal with that stress while pregnant, after giving birth, having a child, and not being able to financially support a child, that sensation is probably horrible. The anger and anguish it feels to, like, have to take care of a child when you don't have the financial means to do it. And in some ways, you can't often, in a horrible situation where you have to deal with all this stress, you don't realize you take it out on a child, but the child feels it, like the sensation of like, it would probably be easier for my parent if I was not here at all. And I don't think parents can indirectly make their child feel that way, and they don't even realize they're doing it. Not saying that it's always the parent's fault that the child feels that way, but then they can also directly do that to a child, like, well, you're lucky I let you live. There's like two sides to the coin, because like my parents never said directly like, oh, you're lucky that I've kept you alive, but that sensation was still there, like that feeling for me personally, like, oh yeah, my parents' lives would probably be easier if like I was not alive.
On the contrary, they were saying that the reason why they against abortion is you make the decision for the child. I was like, you already make that life choice for them. They didn't even have the chance to make the choice.
I guess it's really hard to like dictate the emotions of something that hasn't even developed those types of feelings. Like, personally, but I hear that like a womb can feel a lot of things, right? Like they say, like, don't be upset too much when you're pregnant, because the child can feel those emotions. So in some way, I agree and disagree with that. I just, it's a lot of heartache and misinterpretation of a lot of things. Like, a lot of people have a misinterpretation of the institution of Planned Parenthood, and I think life would be a lot better if people more understood the purpose of Planned Parenthood and the understanding of, I believe her name was like Margaret Sager, right? Like, what her actual purpose of Planned Parenthood was. Because, I mean, I've discussed this with you and you found it super interesting, what I said about her. It's like a lot of people think that she's oh my god. Let me see. She was like a hard eugenicist, like into eugenics. Let me quickly, while I'm looking this up, do you want to tell me your perspective of when it comes to abortion?
Actually, I didn't understand. For abortion, I'm in the middle ground. Like, for example, if you're 6 months, 7 months, you try to get a abortion, the baby is kind of like developed. I don't know how to feel about it, but it's still, like I said, that's some situation is really sticky. Just like sexual assault cases, if those can be exceptional, I just don't see the part that you taking birth control is not allowed. Why? I'm doing preventive measure before even that can be happening.
Did I tell you I wasn't allowed to take birth control growing up?
But this is so crazy to me. Like, yeah. So I'm not allowed to protect myself. Why? Why is that? So you want me to get pregnant? You want a girl get pregnant?
I disagree with you on that. Like, you've been on birth control, right?
Yeah, I do. I did.
It's one of the worst experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, but it's a choice. It's a choice I protect myself.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a personal choice. The Mirena, the IUD, physically ruined me. Like, physically worst thing I ever did to myself. And my doctor even mocked me when I said, like, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced. Like,
I mean, I can't
like
see
the
that.
hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell you what happened to me when I had hi my child. Sorry, that's my cat. Did I ever tell you like what my experience was with it?
I don't think you did. I definitely don't remember.
Okay, so Mirena is the hormonal version of the IUD, right? So you have the insertion. I chose to get it because I was in a committed. I am in a committed relation. It's the same relationship I am now, and I got it within the first 6 months of our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this sounds horrible, but I'm very surprised that my husband did not leave me when I had that IUD in, like break up with me. I would erratically cry over anything. I ended up getting back high school worse acne than I ever had in high school. Like extreme cystic acne and pain. I developed an allergy to all soy when I had been fully vegetarian for already 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't eat any soy. So I had to force myself, which I was disgusted by meat. I hated the sensation to this day. Like I only eat certain types of meat since I've mostly gone back to not eating it. And the sensation of every time I would accidentally eat soy, because soy is basically in everything nowadays, I would get in extreme pain. And so basically cysts were forming on my ovaries the whole entire time repetitively throughout and I'd never had that sensation, never had that experience. And I would get in random pain throughout the day that was literally debilitating. Like I couldn't move all day. It was absolutely the worst sensation I've ever gone through. So while it may be a joke to a lot of people, like, why don't you allow kids to get on birth control at 16? I wasn't allowed to get on birth control. And as an adult, I think my mom made the right decision where she was like, no, like...
So you would rather to have kids, if that is the case, or you don't have sexual intercourse.
But, like, birth control doesn't exactly... Like, there's different forms of birth control. Exactly. Like, we can't deny that. Like, kids should be allowed condoms, spermicide, and things like that, right?
That's for guys, and guess...
Yeah, but a lot of people don't educate their children on those things, like the act of different... the different types of,
birth control.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't think. And I think those should be allowed, or even educating kids on the different types of birth control, because there are IUDs that don't have hormones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like less progesterone, estrogen, and even like it has like a small amount, I believe, of testosterone. So I found out I was allergic to or I had a negative reaction to the genetically engineered like progesterone, which was causing all my horrible effects. And I don't know, I think that hormones can be a crazy thing.
It is,
and it can affect you in a horrible way. I had a horrible, absolutely horrible experience. I became literally erratic, I think, for a full year, because the doctor told me to keep trying it, right? Because, like, oh, you don't want to get pregnant young. I mean, like, I've been off the IUD for, 5-6 years now, and I still feel the effects of it. I gained, like, 30-40 pounds from it, even though I was I was really controlling what I ate, right? The in and out, like 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day based off how I was working out every single day. And somehow I still gained like a lot of water weight. And so I get what you mean, that it's important for kids to have birth control, to understand birth control, and I 100% agree with you on that. But I feel like there's a better way than just all these hormones inserted into children, because it doesn't always regulate it in the correct way. Like, you can feel absolutely horrible when you put it in your body.
I have the bad experience. I have a decent experience and also bad experience with birth control as well. Like, all the symptoms that you mentioned, I don't think I have all of it, but I have like cystic acne. I went on, so like I never have acne in my entire life, and that like the birth control implant get me, and I have a whole year without any period, and then the next year I have like period for a couple months nonstop.
Yeah, isn't that? But that's not how the body should work. So that's like the crazy thing is like I do agree with the like the sensation of like if birth control can help you, that is great. But I don't think doctors can make a lot of women feel bad. Like my doctor sincerely made me feel horrible. I walked out of that. Like for you had the insert in the arm, right?
Yes, I have the implant for the arm.
Yeah. I had the one that was inserted within your uterus, and I had like a PTSD episode because of the clamp. Like I always have the PTSD episode whenever they have to do like a pap smear, which if anyone doesn't know, it's a scraper tool. They use a clamp inside of your uterus. They crank it slowly and slowly over and again, and you just hear the click over and over again until they get it wide enough for your doctor. And then they take the scraper, right? And they scrape it. Well, they use that same clamp to physically force you open. And then they insert it in and they clamp it in. My uterus started to grow over the IUD. And they had to rip it out. And it was... I walked out of that doctor's office like wobbling on my legs and crying, and my husband, who was obviously my boyfriend at the time, like had to like coddle me after having that happen. And so I still agree birth control is extremely important and education to a child is extremely important, but these doctors are telling people like, yeah, there's barely any like there's
nobody know your body other than you. Like nobody, if you have pain, nobody can experience those pain except you. So I think you did the right thing. You voiced your concern. I'm just surprised the doctor didn't.
Oh yeah, she mocked me. She was like, "Oh, we finally got this demon out of you." I'm like, "Excuse me, bitch. Yes, the demon is out of me. Yes." Yes, this is a horrible experience. And I was like crying when I was telling her why I wanted to get it out. And there was no compassion at all. And maybe she felt that I was annoying and erratic 20-year-old, right, in my very early 20s. She probably thought I was fucking annoying. But at the end of the day, like, doctors are supposed to see people in their most vulnerable state. And like some compassion would help. I felt more compassion from the nurse, who was like super stoic and just did not care that I was there, than the doctor that was mocking me at Kaiser. That's just it. And so I think that thinking that she was my doctor in my 20s and I was super emotional, I can only imagine what she was like with a teenager who doesn't understand their body at all, who needs birth control. Because, kids are sexually active.
Yeah, a lot of the time hormones do something for you when you're a teenager. I don't know. I didn't have my first until I passed my 20 something. So that's a little bit different. But still, I would rather to know about more information than whether or not, because I did not want to have a child. I'm still till this day, I don't feel like I'm ready. I don't think you will ever feel ready. It's just not my timeline. And something is really interesting. Do you think guys should take more responsibility on this matter? Because a lot of the time they were saying all of this stuff only to girls.
I disagree with that, because my husband had a conversation with his parents who taught him that some people would purposely get pregnant. You can't guarantee that the other person, like a lot of parents have the capacity and have educated their sons in the act of birth control, but
a lot of guys would say, "Oh, it doesn't feel good." It doesn't feel the good sensation.
I've heard a guy saying that to me. I've had a guy say that to me.
Yeah, he was like, "Can we take it off?"
Oh yeah. What did I say? I was like, when a guy told me that, I was like, that sounds like a personal problem. I want you to wear a condom. I also my friends at the time were quite shocked that I would ask the men before I met my husband
Mm-hmm.
to provide me with a test, a current test of their status.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if they've had any diseases.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's really weird for like a 19-year-old or 20-year-old, 19-year-old to ask.
It kind of sounds weird because I don't
Really?
know, like you. I mean, if a person in actually in a relationship or actually enjoying each other, I don't know, like they might not pop up in their mind that oh, I need to check up with the doctor first.
I think that's why I really appreciate my stepmom.
Mm-hmm.
She would always talk about diseases and stuff like that because she is someone in the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, it's always important because you don't know what someone else is doing, so you always have to check what they're going through in case of anything. And she instilled in me at a young age because it wasn't my mom and dad who did it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they were probably thinking about those things, but my stepmom's like, you always have to make sure someone's been tested for any type of diseases. And so I would always diligently ask, even at a young age, like, have you gotten tested recently?
If the person say no,
Then you can go get tested.
okay, wow, firm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people instill in that, like, the confidence to be able to say that. And I think you and I were discussing this the other day, where I was like, I think it's very important for parents to teach their children to be firm, right, in their belief system. My mom would always make sure that I was the one, even at the age of like 5 or 6, even though it was because of the fact that she was more introverted, that I was the one speaking to the doctors about my symptoms and my pain. Because it gave me the confidence to be able to go to an adult that was older than me, right? And be like, no, right? Like a partner who was older than me, like by years. I'd be like, I would firmly say, no, you can get tested and then we can have any form of intimacy.
Wow.
And I would get that paperwork.
Did
Yeah.
that happen to your husband?
My husband got tested.
So you do ask for every single person that you ever have encountered, like intimacy encounter.
100%.
Wow. Like I think it's a good idea for people to learn that because I would feel uncomfortable. Like, I guess
But-
my background, it always made me feel uncomfortable talk about sex or sex education.
I feel like people find conversations about intimacy very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I find it attractive. My husband got tested before we slept together, and he said that it was in fact very attractive. That I was like, no, I want you to get tested. I've been tested recently, before being intimate with anyone, especially you, and here's my test. You can get tested as well. And he was like, I was the first person who he had been intimate with that had ever asked for a test.
I don't
You
feel
look
surprised.
shocked. You
I'm
look shocked.
surprised that you said that, but I don't think.
Is it shocked knowing me though? Like who I am as a person that I would ask for that?
Still, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Because I wouldn't.
Yeah, I told all my friends, I was like, why aren't you doing this? This is extremely important. And after I was very adamant that it was important that they did that, they thought about it for like a year or so, and then they started doing it. Because you don't know what you're getting. Like,
That's
there's
true.
not only pregnancies that you can get through intercourse, there's so many other things. And so I truly do believe that kids, no matter what, should get tested. I mean, like, you can get a different forms of diseases through not even sexual contact. So why not? Like, look at what's happening with like monkeypox and everything like that. You can get through that through intercourse. That's an extremely important. I mean, it's not extremely fatal. Like in the last thousands of cases in the United States, I think it's only 5 people that have died directly from monkeypox, and I think within the last week. So that's the data that it showed. So I think it's extremely important to have that information.
That's really responsible. Actually, it's a really good idea. I hope our audience actually think about it.
I still get tested yearly, even in my marriage. I trust my husband wholeheartedly, without any doubt in my mind. But I don't know what else I'm getting in contact with, like for instance, like shots and things like that. That something could happen, or if I do anything else that's a physical activity, that those types of things matter.
Oh wow.
I feel very strongly about it too.
Yeah,
I think it's very important.
I do see it's really important, but dive back into the topic
of
I feel like a lot of guys refuse to take condom, and it's not like
is that really a thing? I don't know. I've been not in the dating world for what 6-7 years, so
I always heard that, like especially when I was in the military, I overheard from the conversation, and then I will heard a girl just crying in the barracks, just saying that I told him to take it, like take a condom or whatever, so she can get protected, but he refused.
Why is she crying?
Because she got pregnant. And
that takes two to tango. You're at fault too, because you were like, if a person refuses to wear a condom, then you should have been
tell them to stop.
Yeah, you should have said, no, I don't want to have sex with you no more. I feel no pity
for the person that sometimes when you're in the relationship, you really want to please to the other person. I can see that. Like I said, not everybody got ways the way that like you speak firm about yourself. A lot of the time you don't really
I can
know.
See that. Like people, I guess I'm a very different person. But at the end of the day, if this is a way, do you love yourself enough to protect yourself?
That's a good
even
statement.
From yourself, right? Like, even if your parents didn't teach you this, the importance of these things, when you're old enough, it stops being your parents' fault. You're an adult. The minute you hit a certain age, you have to start making adult choices. And the more adult choices you make, the better it is for you as an individual. And so if parents don't teach you, right, and they instilled in you that, birth control is wrong, and you're crying, right, in your bathroom, you have to remember that you made a choice as well.
I mean, she has become a mom now. I think she's happy.
I hope she's happy. Yeah, of course. I hope she's happy.
But they were in a relationship. That's their personal matter. It just still, I can see that, like, I feel pain when I see people get hurt. Or people complain that they got hurt.
I don't feel that way. Maybe I'm more like, maybe it's a psychotic to think that way, but
it's like you deserve it.
No, it's not that you deserve it. This was your choice. So just walk firmly in your choice. You can be upset for a little bit, yeah. But like, the child can feel what you're feeling. Right? Like, that's what I think.
So you still you supported on the Planned Parenthood, or you're not? Because the way you're saying it right now, it sounds like you're contradicting yourself, saying that you say, the kids will feel it, so you shouldn't feel some type of.
But that's why I'm thinking. That's why I think I go back and forth on the subject of
Planned Parenthood.
No, not Planned Parenthood. I have no qualms with Planned Parenthood, with the act, because Planned Parenthood does not equal abortion. Everyone has that same stereotype. Planned Parenthood does not equal abortion.
True. Facts.
Right? Like, that's not the same thing. Planned Parenthood means Planned Parenthood. I think people have this misunderstanding, right? I don't like the idea of abortions, right? I don't like the idea of, like, physically what's gonna happen when you have an abortion, right? Like, I know what happens. I've watched the videos. because I want to educate myself on what happens when you get an abortion.
But it's
it's
choice.
Necessary, right? Mm-hmm. It's necessary in a lot of instances, financially, emotionally, all those reasons. Mm-hmm. And everyone has a reason for getting an abortion. Mm-hmm. It's not a light choice for any individual. And I feel horrible that people have to make that decision. I would feel horrible if I had to make that decision. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of people, it's right for them. And I see women who have had abortions, who feel horribly about abortions emotionally, but they know it's the right choice for them because they couldn't do good for the child that would have been produced, right? Mm-hmm. That would have been born. And so while I don't care for the act of abortions, I will never say it's my right to tell someone what to do. Ever. If I had a child who was 18 to 26, however age that is, 14, and they said, I'm pregnant, I need to have an abortion, that's their choice.
Even they are your child.
Oh, yeah. Like, that is their choice. Mm-hmm. They have to make this grown-up decision themselves. And while I won't like the act and I'll give the option, like, hey, like, you know, I can take responsibility. We can find someone who wants a child that takes responsibility, put all the choices in front of them, and they can make the decision. If the decision is still abortion, it's not my right to tell them what to do.
I think a lot of people, even right now, they see their ruling get turned over, right? So they were saying that, oh my God, I need to. Oh, even actually, abortion right actually affect how people select the job right now, because some state doesn't support it, and some states support it. So they refuse to go to some certain state to work over there.
But, okay, so I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding because of media. Like, you heard this story about this young child who had to get an abortion in another state because she was raped in Ohio, I believe it was. And so the mother took her to another state to get an abortion at a very young age. I think it was like 11, 13.
So even she was raped? That's no exception on this scenario?
No. So, okay, so that's what the news reported on, right? Ohio allows children to get abortions. It does.
Okay.
Right? But do you know why the mother took her to another state?
I don't know. I didn't even read that news, but it's good to know. Okay.
Because she was raped by the mother's boyfriend. And they were both illegal. And the mother didn't want her boyfriend to get arrested, so she took her to another state, got an abortion. The doctor started talking about how I think it was like Indiana or some other state, correct me if I'm wrong, but she takes them to another state to get it, and the doctor's like, yeah, I had to give this young kid an abortion, you know, because she was raped at such a young age. Turns out Ohio found out about it. Mm-hmm. And so guess what they did? They investigated. Turns out she was raped by the mother's boyfriend. They were illegal immigrants, right? Mm-hmm. And didn't want the boyfriend to get arrested. And so she took her to another state, and that was why. It wasn't that Ohio didn't allow abortions.
But did you see? That is why you should plan Parenthood. Some people are not meant to be a parent.
But that isn't a thing in other countries.
This type of, but that's the point. A lot of people didn't understand that. Okay, why you need to be planning your parenthood? Maybe when you get pregnant, you just need to be firm. You need to go through a bit. Some people are not meant to be mentally, physically not compatible.
But a lot of people don't understand that that's why Margaret Sanger created Planned Parenthood, right? She used to be a firm believer of eugenics. Do you know what eugenics are?
I'm sorry, my English is not that great. What does that mean?
Okay, so eugenics was this concept that was created by a lot of white men, and basically it was, in a way, just kind of like being a Nazi, where they wanted specific people only to get pregnant. Well, Margaret Sanger, when she first believed, and this is based off not only reading her books, from what I remember, it's been a while, so I'll warn everyone, it's been a while since I've read her books, because someone told me she was a racist, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to take your word for that she's just a racist. Let me actually look into it. Let me read the articles. Well, her grandson, who was a lawyer, wrote an article based off his knowledge of his grandmother and all the research and books that were based. I believe his name was Alexander Sanger. And so what it was she, when she was young, she was a nurse.
Okay.
And she grew up, I believe, in an Irish family of 7, from what I remember, because, like, my mind is foggy from alcohol. and she watched as her mother died in her last pregnancy, because her father wasn't protecting the mother, is essentially what she said, was, I guess, in a way, religious, and so had became pregnant with the 7th or 8th child, one or the other, and she died due to diseases from being pregnant in an unhealthy way while they were impoverished, like dirt poor. And she blamed her father for a lot of her childhood, and even as an adult, blamed her father for the death of her mother. And so she went through, and as a nurse would help low-income people, right, through their pregnancies, through their health, and would see that a lot of the low-income households had no education or understanding of birth control. And that's what made her decide to fight for women's rights, to understand their body, to understand how to protect themselves, to understand birth control. And that, yes, abortion was an option. It wasn't the option that she would care for them to use, but it was an option that they had. And that's what she based Planned Parenthood on. And then she fell into this group of eugenics. And she thought, oh, this is like planning. Every child will be wanted. Every child would be a choice. Not because of race, supposedly. This is what they're saying, right? I'm not saying that this is accurate to wholeheartedly. But this was based on her knowledge in the books as well, like what she wrote about. It wasn't about, race. It was about making sure that you could financially take care of a child, that every child would be wanted. And the minute she realized that eugenics was more about race than it was about each child being wanted and needed and planned and could be financially taken care of, she separated herself from eugenics, because eugenics had a lot of white men who were following it, who didn't want impoverished people, low-income area people, which in the 40s to, I would say, 80s, which is around her time frame when she found out, is that they cared more about white people, white rich people repopulating, people that were educated, they felt, right, than it was about race, right? Because the reason why I looked into this was because I remember driving around with my father, and he was like, oh, well, you know that the creator of Planned Parenthood was racist. I didn't say anything. It was like, and I was like, okay, let me look this up. Let's see how accurate that statement is. Like, if you're gonna put such a firm belief on someone, such a firm statement, because racism isn't a joke. And at this point, people throw it around like it's nothing.
No, it would never be a joke. It shouldn't be. Make it as lighthearted. Not ever. Because you get a look at the other person, you think that you're making a fun, just making a joke. That make the whole concept is wrong. It just
but I looked it up, and it was like her understanding of eugenics was very different with what it was. Basically, she was uneducated about what she was following. When she educated herself and found the knowledge of what she was following, she stopped following it. That's all you can do. And she will forever be labeled by a lot of people as a racist, because she didn't understand what she was following. And so her son, I would recommend everyone read it, because I think it was about 13 pages. It's not that long, and it was a very quick read. It was very eloquently done. I mean, obviously, he's a lawyer. He went through the history of his own grandmother to educate people. but no one wants to read it because like no one wants to take the time. It's a very interesting read. I truly do. His name is Alexander Sanger, and it's Sanger from what my recollection is. And it's a very we'll link it down below because I think it's a very important read. And her different books are fairly interesting, but they can be quite long and filled with a lot of personal things that people don't want to read about. But yeah, so it's like Planned Parenthood, her purpose was to educate young women about the act of choosing to be a parent, not being forced to be a parent. And I like that idea. Yeah. I don't want anyone to be forced into a situation and then to treat the child as if they're unwanted. That sounds horrible to me. Because no 5-year-old wants to feel like their parent doesn't love them. Because children do feel that.
People have a different argument with saying that if you don't think you can take care of a child, why would you just give it up to foster
care? Do you understand what foster care is like?
I'm just bringing their argument.
No. I know. Did I ever tell you my mom's friend was a foster care parent? She's so sweet, the nicest woman on this planet, and she would cry about how, not because of the children, but the experiences of these children. And I believe she ended up adopting a few of the children that she got through foster care. Mm-hmm. And she's a wonderful mother. And I see her. She adopted a young baby. She I believe she adopted the child's older parents, or not parents, sorry, children. But the experiences that foster care children go through is absolutely horrendous, and it's not for everybody. And some people should never be foster care, but they don't go through. Sometimes they go through rigorous background checks, but some don't. Some people slip through the cracks, and these children go through horrible experiences, shoving their clothes in trash bags, moving household to household. And it's like, I don't think people understand that being a child is volatile, right? You're going through all these hormones. You're going through the sensation of either being abandoned or your parents going through some unhealthy situation. And some people aren't understanding of that. And they have to go through that horrible sensation. And there's even groups, even here where we live, I don't know if you know that you and I have actually, we do the IT for them for places where people have failed adoptions. And they're just, it's basically an orphanage. It's not called an orphanage or orphanage, but it's basically, they have dorms, they go to school, and they go to both, where they've been in failed adoptions process, or they had issues with foster care. And you know, you can't guarantee a happy household. Like, I've heard of some people. I have one friend whose partner is adopted, and he's very cared for, loved for. He talks about how his parents very love him, but that's not always the instance. Adoptive parents can still treat their children horribly. There's no guarantee. That's just the reality.
It's true. I saw one incident is on YouTube. It's a family. I don't really recall what is the name of the channel. That's why I don't watch a lot of family channel at all, because it's dark. Like, when I think the girl was intentionally to adopt a kid from out of the country.
Oh, are you talking about what I think you're talking? Like they adopted an autistic child.
Yes, they did, and then they returned it.
No, they didn't return it. They rehomed it.
Yeah, but they wanted to return it.
Him. Yeah. They wanted to return him. Yeah,
exactly. They wanted to. I'm sorry.
How do you return a child? It's not like a fucking dog. I'm sorry.
Even dog, I wouldn't do that. How? Yeah. Like, what type of person you couldn't be?
Yeah, I know I complain about my cat constantly whining and stuff, and even my husband didn't want our cat, but now, like, I could never imagine giving him to anybody else. Like, no, it's just no matter how annoying he is, no matter how much he cries, no matter how much he wakes me up at 3 a.m. in the morning to be fed, I would never return my cat. And that's a cat. There's a difference between an animal and a human being, in my opinion. Like, I would never, ever abuse my cat. I don't understand that concept of hurting, returning, abusing. Like, did you see the videos? They were at one point duct taping his hands.
I don't really recall what the channel is. I don't want to bash them, but this is horrible. They have mentioned that it was really horrible for them to try to handle it. They didn't able to. I think you shouldn't go become the parents. You just ruin the child.
Do you know why they became adoptive parents?
Because for the channel.
Yeah, for YouTube. So I don't care about bashing them.
Yeah.
They went online and they made a video and acted like they were the victim.
I saw that.
They chose to adopt a child with special needs. And guess what? At the end of the day, like, you'll see videos of adopted children who, like, you'll go to these out-of-country orphanages. They don't report everything, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of instances, you're thinking you're getting a fully healthy child, and it's still not fully healthy. There's a lot of malnourishment. There's possible autism. There's possible neurological disorders. Mm-hmm. But they still report that the child is perfectly healthy, right?
Mm-hmm. I thought they wanted a special needs.
Exactly. Child. So it means it's a lot worse than if they just adopted a child, right? Because they chose to have a child with disabilities because they wanted the notoriety of having a child with disabilities. It's not a handbag. It's not like some fancy handbag that you can walk around with. Yeah. To be like, this is what I have. Like, look at me. I'm so great. That's horrible.
It's not just only horrible. I think they should have some sort of punishment, like, by law. Like, nobody should just get away with trashing another human being entirely with, like, I don't know. That's just me. I think I'm way over the top for, like, feeling bad for the kid. I feel really bad for the kid.
I feel horrible that he had to stay in that household, and it looked like, if you watch the videos, they treated their own children better than they treated.
I mean, it's just like you said, it's their own children, ain't it?
But the thing is they would complain that he wouldn't stop eating, or like steal food or whatever like that. But do people not understand that children that come from orphanages were forced to eat like a minute amount of food? And so what you're supposed to do when you adopt a child, they didn't educate themselves on the act of adopting a child, because what you're supposed to do is give a child as much food as they want, because they have no knowledge of the experiences this child went through. And so just give them what they need, right? If they want extra food, if they want to eat more, if they have to take some from your kid's plate, okay, so I need to readjust and teach them that they have, no matter what, they don't have to take food from my child's plate, right? From my biological child's plate. I'll give them as much food and snacks in their own room so that they know they can grab it at any point in time. That it's no longer that they have to hoard it. They can have it whenever they need. And a lot of children go through that, because like even children in foster care system sometimes go through that sensation where they're only allowed to eat a certain amount of food. And so you have to give them that free reign of being able. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things they complained about, is the way he ate.
I think though that it's a good thing that he's no longer with them. At least the part that maybe that somebody actually care for him.
But that's the thing. So hopefully he's in a better situation. He's in a more loving home and things like that. But that's the problem with people just saying like, oh, just give your child up for adoption. A lot of parents want to be parents. There's no guarantee in the form of giving up a child that you're giving them up to a good household. There's no guarantee of that. Or they're going to treat them as well as they would as treated their own children. Some parents are amazing, adoptive parents are amazing. They treat their kid above and beyond that they adopt.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no guarantee or knowledge that that's what's going to happen.
But that's still a chance. That's what they were taking the chance for those parts. Instead, I don't know how the kids actually grew up to become a human, like decent human being.
But that's why I argue nature versus nurture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you and I've had this conversation because we've grown up in households that weren't the great at one point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about the docu-series I Killed My Dad. Do you remember?
Yeah.
You and I have very different opinions.
Yeah, we do. Like, if you don't know the show, you should watch it. It's in Netflix. It's really an interesting read. I would say that it
is an interesting watch. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it opened my mind to actually think about what the conversation is in between in that show. So I was like, okay, I can see your point of view.
But your point of view is very different than mine. Because I understand why he killed his parent. I get it. You don't. You don't like it at all. You think he should be in jail, and I think that he got the appropriate sentence where he got off with probation.
I didn't say that he should be in jail. It just I think he...
You said it in the line when we were eating. You screamed at me. You're like, he should be in jail. And I was like, I disagree. And you're like, huh. Like, you huffed at me.
It's the part that I don't think I have a different take on it, because my household, it has a in my background, it has a similar take, that I have a really frightening childhood, like that I live on the edge every single day, but it doesn't give me the right, like I in the scenario come to myself. For me, I was at one point really trying to save myself, but still, that's a minimum cost into it that I wouldn't
that you wouldn't do, right? Like, you wouldn't kill your parent to save yourself.
I will protect myself for a certain point, that I will make sure this person is not get killed, if that makes sense. Like, I have even more. I was in a younger age when I dealing with a lot of stuff,
but. Do you ever remember getting in blackout rages where you don't understand?
I never went to blackout rages. I have blackout when I was drinking, but I sleep on the floor. But not like have wages that I wouldn't remember. No, I remember every sensation because it was so intense. There's no way that I can black out of it. That's why it's hard. When people describe those situations, they get blackout. I have zero knowledge. I guess because I never experienced it. I couldn't see it from the point that I never understand it. Mm-hmm. If that's just only my part. That's why I said it's good to see a different side of view, because maybe for some other people actually experience it.
I think people can black out. I think men are different than women, right? And he was a boy who was dealing with abuse and neglect, and was purposely uneducated by his parent, never allowed to go to school. And I think about the fact that he has 10 times more testosterone than we do. And on top of that, he was forced to never show emotion while he was being abused. So I can imagine in a fearful state, feeling alone and abandoned, the way that was described that he was. And obviously, documentaries like to skew the opinion of what, so take it with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, when a child is abused, when a male is abused, when they're growing up with all those hormones, they don't know how to show emotion. And it almost comes off as if they're like psychopathic, right? Because that's how you described him. Because he didn't show that much emotion throughout the whole entire interview.
Yeah.
And he did. And did you notice how he was not used to being touched?
I can see that part, because that would be I would be the same way too. I don't like people touching me.
Do you notice? Yeah, I don't either. I still remember the first time my mom hugged me.
Like, that's the part. Like, by the way, just a side note, if a person never asked for the hug and they
don't fucking touch them.
Yeah,
don't.
They didn't try to like come at you, look like they try to hug you. Let's just keep it like that. Like, yeah. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean that's why. What is it called? That's why when with the documentary, I like to take it with a grain of salt because it's he was in this what is it 12 years of abuse basically. So I would understand being in such a blackout rage where you feel abandoned that you protect yourself, so your urge to protect yourself is so great that you black out and you just continue to shoot because you feel that's the only way to save yourself. And he was the father was known for abusing, like the part in the film that still gets me, that still pisses me off. And I told you this, and even you're like, yeah, that was dumb as fuck. Was when the police officer you see in the camera, because the father had cameras and recorded cameras all over the household. They walk up to the son, who is they heard was getting physically abused right in front of his abuser in the household. Right? Because basically the land is a household, and said, hey, we heard you're being abused by your dad. Right in front of the father that was supposedly abusing him. And they were trying to use it in court as a way to say, hey, look, he said that he wasn't abused. In that instance, he was like, no, my dad doesn't abuse me. Of course he's not going to say it in front of his abuser.
I guess not a lot of people were in the household like that. They don't understand the part of frightening, even though you have authority. But by the way, what you gotta do with the authority? Why even? That's so stupid. Why the police will even ask you, will you get abused? Will you get kidnapped? But in front of your kidnapper. Like,
it was so dumb. It was like the most idiotic thing I've ever seen. I was like, how? Like, when I saw the police officer, I was like, ooh,
you need training.
Yeah, you either need new training or you need a new job. Like, you've gone in the wrong career, because to be that uneducated
with abuser or not able to resign of the situation,
especially with how much domestic violence officers have to deal with.
Yes, true.
Why? How? Like, it makes me take my glasses on and off. Like, it's so it's when I watch that part, I rewind it over and over and over again. I was like I cannot believe what I'm watching. And I rewinded it over and over again, and I'm like, oh, he actually did that. Like, you're actually a moron. You are, in my opinion, as a full-grown adult, a moron, and somehow you're an officer. Like, most officers know, take the child aside. Hey, just want to talk to you for a bit. Let's drive you in. Let's get some more information. You know, I just have a few questions for you. You know, somewhere away from your parent, or if you wanna, somewhere where, you know. And if you don't know how to treat the situation, get the person that does. Ask for a different person.
And sometimes abuser and victim sometimes don't feel that way. So today you might not abuse me. So when I don't know, your question coming into me is asking at this current moment, or you asking the whole lifelong journey that I have with this person.
Yeah, that guy was such a moron. I just can't get over it. I think about it, like, I'll randomly wake up at night and I'm like, oh, this idiot, and then I'll go back to sleep because I'm just thinking about it. Like, a week later after watching it, like 2 weeks later, and I'm still thinking about, I'm like, oh, what an idiot, and then I'll go back to sleep. You know, like, it's just, it not that it gives me nightmares, but like, this person is probably still a police officer, and that's, you will forever be known in my brain as that dumbass. Like, I have no words. But in those instances, there's just, I think about it, and there's just some people that should not be parents.
Yes, true. 100%. I don't disagree.
Yeah, and so, not to tie it back to what we were watching, I could understand where Joe Rogan was upset in his podcast, and he was like, you are not going to force my 14-year-old to give birth to their, rapist child. And in some instances, you hear of rapists like getting full custody of the child. Yeah, there's some instances that happens.
That's
because
disgusting.
They consider the woman hysterical, and so the child is forced to go with their, the woman's abuser.
How do you feel if the kids grow up when they ask the question, who's my dad, who's my mom, and like, guess what?
That's a very delicate question that needs to be done in front of the right professionals, because you don't want that child to hate themselves for something they had no part of. That's it. Because I feel like children put a lot of, or people in general, put a lot of burden on themselves for the acts that they had no control over.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The pain that their parent feels. And so if you truly love your child, you would educate them like, this wasn't your fault. This is something that happened to me. But there's no guarantee that being the parent in that situation, there's no guarantee that you're going to be the best person to say to your kid.
Yes, true. Because maybe along the way you have felt some type of way when you treat your child with the anger that you didn't even
you didn't mean to. Yeah. So that's why, like, in some ways I don't like the concept of abortion. Like, it sucks, but I do understand where it's necessary in life. Yeah.
I mean, right now it's not all the state is banned. Some of the state is still like allow us, so you just need to drive around. Like, if you I guess if you're really...
if it was that easy, it would be that easy. It still costs a lot of money. It's still...
Some other state will support it, in that they give like
stipends and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole knowledge, but there's a reason why Roe v. Wade was so easy to overturn. And they knew that this was a possibility, which frustrates me so much. They could have made something more concrete. They could have made sure that wasn't happening. I think I told you, I called it like a year or two ago. I was like, yeah.
They got overturned it.
Yeah.
You see that coming already.
Yeah. Just because the way it was written. The way that it was written made it so easy to overturn. And that's what frustrates me. They could have made something more concrete. But they piled on one thing and then they attached it to a bunch of other things when it wasn't a full written law in federal government.
Yeah, I can see that, but also for just like, I think people doesn't want to support it, they can keep it to themselves, but they don't have to anguish the other people for their choice.
But that's the thing, that could go that's where I disagree with you. That could be on both ends, right? Both sides of the aisle try to agitate. Really? You don't think people are like, it's my right to choose? You don't think
but I don't think they try
to
meet in the middle. That's my point of view. They don't want to meet in the middle. They want to be saying, I am the only one right.
Mm-hmm. I guess you're right in that instance. Sorry, I'm looking for my asshole of a child.
Your cat.
Yes, my beautiful and wonderful cat. He's over there. But I think they both try to agitate each other. Like, that's the thing. I have conversations with my mom. Like, we disagree in a lot of instances. Mm-hmm. There's some times that she understands where abortion is needed, and there's other times where she just completely disagrees with it. Mm-hmm. And she has every right to think that way. Everyone has a right to their opinion.
It's true.
And my mom gets very emotional about it, but I never try to agitate her or scream that she's stupid for disagreeing with me. You know that young women will say that to their parents who disagree with them. Like, I know in an instance where it's happened. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why don't you just respect that your parents have a different perspective than you?
just like this instance, everybody have their own opinion, but they never meet eye to eye in the middle. They didn't want to support the other side of it. They didn't want to. It's just only one versus the other. Just like our podcast name, right? Only one versus the other, and that's no in middle ground.
But I think that it's such a hard topic.
But it's been 2022. Like, it's not like
that. I don't
1920.
I don't think that matters.
I mean, a lot of stuff
views have changed. Yeah, completely agree. Like, views have changed. Perspective has changed. We have better technology. But at the end of the day, people's beliefs and understanding of life will never change. Everyone's going to have a different view. And respecting another person's view is going to go a lot further than treating someone like an asshole.
That's my point. I just feel like that they are not respecting each other's point of view. They're not
100%. Yeah.
They just totally scrap the other person's idea out of the window.
Yeah, but that's because abortion is such a hard topic. Even if it is 2022. It's such a hard discussion because there's so much emotion behind it. Do you hear him? He's psychotic.
You mean your cat?
Yeah. But what is it called? I'm thinking about the cat. That's why it's like, if we would respect each other more, we would find a compromise, right? But people are so hard set in believing that they're right and they're true to their beliefs that there is no middle ground. It will always be one versus the other. It will always be one person's perspective from their personal experience and beliefs from another person, an individual. And society can only do so much. There has to be someone that's willing to meet in the middle to find a compromise in every single form of the act of having an abortion, right? And there's a lot of like bringing a child into this world. There's a reason why it's such a difficult conversation, is because the act of bringing a kid into this world is so great, and
also it's hard
on
the mother.
It's hard on the mother. I think it's hard on the father as well. I think
it depends on the father. You really care about this child.
There's a joke from Dave Chappelle that I really enjoy,
where
he talks about how, I think it's fucking hilarious, where he talks about how women have a right to choose. And then he says, but ladies, a man has a right to choose whether or not he gets to pay. And it's fucking hilarious. I think it's so funny because everyone's shouting, yeah, women have a right to choose. He was like, but women, you have to understand that a man has a right to choose whether or not he wants to pay for
the responsibility they put it in the woman's body.
But that's the thing.
How the girls get pregnant.
But that's the thing. It takes two people to tango. And there's no guarantee that the father chose
a real lane.
Yeah, is a full-on participant in the act of
having a child.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. There's instances where both parties, either person, could force the situation, right? Because it's such an intimate moment. It's such a, emotional moment where, holes can get poked and you don't even realize. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Like, the condom can get poked up and you don't even know.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't be my choice.
Yeah. I mean, it's a personal choice. If personally, like, if I were to get pregnant, I would personally not get an abortion, but that's a personal choice. I'm also in a very committed relationship, I have the financial means to take care of not only myself, but a child. And so does my husband. So we have the financial means to take care of it. But that's a different story compared to a lot of people. Not everyone has that capability, and so each individual has to choose what's right for them. And people have to respect that.
I see that too. Well, it's such a great topic that we bring it up. I really feel like that we point out a lot of point of view from your side and from my side. By the way, you really need to check out the Netflix series of that show.
Oh, I killed my father. Yeah, that one. That's really interesting.
So like you can do the comment. Let us know what you think. I'm willing to hear like what your point of view is. Like we try to meet you in the middle ground. I try to learn, understand more people.
Yeah, of course. Me too. Yeah. And I'll say this, we'll put in the description down below some of the information and topics that we had mentioned, such as is like we'll put Planned Parenthood in the bottom. We'll put the article from Alex Sanger and things like that, so that you could take a look for yourself and judge for yourself. And please feel free to comment and tell us what you think, because it's all about your personal viewpoints, and we just want to have a conversation.
Because we respect your point of view.
Yeah, definitely. Because each person has a right to it. It's freedom of speech.
It's true. Just don't be mean.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Bye.